All right, so we're back, and I was after everything had been announced with respect to what was going on with the stabbing and mass vehicular homicide thing, or attempted mass vehicular homicide. I came across a tweet from Shannon Watts basically espousing the idea that we need more gun control because of active shooting situations like the one that just happened today, except we all now know it wasn't an active shooter. Not only that, she posted it about 30 minutes after the fact. And so I every time I try to give these people the benefit of the doubt in terms of their agenda pushing or try to be fair about the situation, I start to realize the people who I'm dealing with. And these are people who in many ways are like criminals. They don't play fair. And so you just got to understand that reality and respond accordingly. And joining me live to talk about this particular tweet from Shannon Watts is Bob Owens from Bearing Arms. What's going on, Bob? Good to have you back.
How's it going, my friend?
Man, it's going. And I'm pretty sure it's going on your end too.
Oh yeah, it's been an interesting day watching the folks on the gun control fringe falling all over themselves to try to turn a sedan attack into a mass shooting event.
They do it with so much vigor, and it's kind of like, what was the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Exactly.
And it's kind of like their playbook consists of one page: tragedy, exploited. That's it.
That pretty much sums up what Shannon Watts does for a living. And unfortunately, she's really, really bad at it because time and again, she gets so far out ahead of these stories, doesn't wait for any evidence. She's trying to strike and get the narrative established.
Yeah.
And then she sits there and ends up with the egg on her face because she's, 9 times out of 10 completely wrong.
Yeah, like blatantly wrong. It's amazing. It's kind of like you guys need to find a new star player because this one is really messing y'all up pretty badly. She's a little bit like Romo.
Yeah, I'm really, really amazed that Bloomberg keeps her around. I mean, she's been consistently wrong and losing face for, like 2 years straight?
Yeah. Do you wonder maybe I don't know, maybe it's kind of a purposeful tactic and basically trying to make us look like bullies?
Maybe, but I mean, you're sitting here talking about a woman who fabricated school shooting research data, more than tripling the number of events a couple of years ago. It was so bad that even CNN and USA Today called her out on how blatantly she lied. You've got incidents like what's going on today. You have all sorts of irresponsible tweets, which, by the way, most of us can't see because she blocks anybody who blatantly disagrees with her, with maybe one or two prominent exceptions.
Maybe I fall into that exception. I don't know. But for whatever reason, I'm not blocked by her, which I was completely surprised about. When I was able to see her tweet, I was kind of like, whoa, okay, this is new. I know Moms Demand Action actual group, they block me. But she has blocked. Maybe it's a crush on me or something. I don't know.
Maybe.
But it's very telling because it's when you really put things into perspective. Like we're talking about people who are saying we want common sense, we want to have an open dialogue about guns and finding reasonable ways to try to stop the violence. And I'm like, how do you expect to do that when you post videos, you block the comments, you block people from your Twitter feed because you just don't want to hear anybody saying anything that's counter to what your narrative is? It boggles my mind trying to understand how people can't see past this nonsense. But maybe I give people too much credit.
I mean, I think you are. I mean, they've gotten so bad in trying to hide who they are that nobody even knew where they were. The last couple of years, they've tried to protest the NRA annual meeting.
Yeah.
2 years in a row, they had such pathetically small turnout that we documented that, they were embarrassed by it. So, a couple of months ago when we were in Louisville, they didn't even say where they were going, and they hid in a school somewhere where they couldn't be found and did not let the media even know where they were, except for a few select allies.
Yeah.
Because they're tired of being exposed. And it's, it would be really funny if it wasn't so serious and at the same time quite sad how pathetic these guys are.
Yeah, and it kind of scares me a little bit because it's like, it's clear at this point that they understand that the narrative or the rhetoric that they're spewing is wrong. It's incorrect. They understand that the proposed measures that they're trying to push don't do anything to actually stop gun violence. So it's like, what? Like, I'm not one for conspiracies, but it's like after a certain point, when you've pretty much eliminated all of the other factors, where else do you go? You know, like what? Like, go ahead.
Well, it's just one of these things that they're not really interested in facts or reality. They belong to folks who believe in a collectivist view, who believe that violence should belong to the state as a monopoly. They want the state to control everything. And free people who are armed to defend themselves oppose the monopoly of the state.
Yeah.
And so can oppose status, which is what most of them are. If you look at where these groups get their money, it's from socialists for the most part. There are some communist groups, Soros and his bunch, who were backing these same groups of clowns. And it's a control thing. The operative word in gun control is control. They want to control law-abiding citizens. They don't care about criminals. They know that they're not going to have the criminals. They want to control you and I.
Which is funny to me because it's like, well, then who controls the criminals? Like, do they have a plan or a measure to control all the criminals who are running recluse after they've controlled the citizens?
Honestly, if you look at the other totalitarian regimes out there in the world, which is what, that have such systems in world history, these guys really don't care.
Yeah. So when you heard the breaking news today, well, what were your first thoughts?
My first thoughts were, first off, okay, this is bad. I hope that nobody's seriously injured. And then it got real interesting because in very short order, we discovered that, we've got, I believe at the time we had 7 people injured, only 1 critical.
Yeah. Everybody
Everybody else was in good shape. And right off the bat, that made me very
suspicious.
Yeah. That something was amiss. This guy was either the worst shot in the world or there's a lot more to this story. And I even said that on Twitter. There's something up with this.
Yeah.
And I said that pretty early on. And it turns out, it's because there was not a gun involved up until the OSU officer plugged the guy.
Yeah.
And fortunately, he was in the area allegedly checking out a gas leak and was a minute or so away, actually saw the stuff go down and got to this guy pretty quick before he could do too much damage.
Yeah, it's the idea, because I had a lot of people telling me, well, why is it every time there's a self-defense situation like this, it's always a cop or something like that? Well, that's just because y'all don't allow us to carry our guns. So it's either a lot of people die or get stopped by a cop or another type of good guy. But at the same time, when I was in school on campus, I remember several occasions where nothing really bad happened in terms of something going down where I felt like if I had a gun, I would have had to use it. But I did hear stories. I did have certain kind of moments that caused me to feel a little bit insecure. And it's amazing to me how we act as if our college campuses are these little microcosms of safety where nobody can come in, nobody from the inside can go crazy or do something, and that it just blocks out the rest of the world and all of the bad stuff. And we just have happy land where we theorize about all these other types of ideologies and thought processes and, what you typically do at a college campus. And then act like real life doesn't continue after class.
And the thing is, that's entirely false. I know for a fact that there are guns on campus. As long as daddy send pretty girls to school, there's going to be guns on campus. I know students right now who are on campus with guns that their fathers gave them. Self-defense. When I was in school, I had friends in grad school who carried guns because they were female students and had to park way out in parking lots at night. And, while there are good guys out there who will walk girls to their car when they can, that's not reliable. You can't always expect that.
You can't.
And so I knew faculty, staff, and students who carried. There have always been guns on college campus, whether people want to believe it or not.
Yeah. So now you are essentially, in many ways, you're part of the media as well, right? And to a degree, I am too. That's funny. But from a journalistic standpoint, there's always going to be a balance between getting the information out there first and then also getting it correct. You know, because let's not kid around. I mean, it's always a good thing to get, because when I think something's going down and I want the information, I want to go somewhere I know they have it. If nothing else, I know this place has it. They have that information. And you being a journalist, you understand that as well. So you want to get that information out there as quick as possible. So, but how do you balance between, you know, making sure the information is correct and then being the first? And I know for a lot of the people in the mainstream media, they prioritize being first over being correct.
And sadly, I think that's entirely the case. When I start seeing a story develop like what we had today, the first thing I look at is what is the most plausible explanation for what's going on. So when the campus alert went out that we have an active shooter, that seemed to be the most plausible thing. So we put up, you know, breaking active shooter reported at Ohio State. Then, you know, but we always put a caveat on that this is what confirm it yet.
Gotcha.
Then we start looking at, you know, okay, do we have injuries? You know, is there actually credible evidence that a physical event did take place? We saw ambulances, okay. But then the story started falling apart. The injuries were not consistent
with a mass shooting,
with what I expect to see in a firearms-related incident. The numbers were, you know, what you may expect, but the severity of injury wasn't there. So that's a red flag that if you're familiar with firearms, it should really tip you off as a huge red flag that something's up with this initial story.
Yeah.
The problem we have in the generalist media is they don't put people on beats anymore. They don't have a lot of specialists. And I have made standing offers for 4 or 5 years for the Associated Press, CNN, anybody. Call me.
Yeah.
I will take you out. I will recommend gun schools where you can send your guys out and get a good training. Nobody has taken me up. They don't care.
And it's unfortunate.
It's more about servicing the narrative.
Say that again?
I said it's more about servicing the narrative than getting the facts right. They don't care if they've got the best trained reporters getting the best available information out there. They're more interested in being first, and we'll clean up details later, maybe if those details support what we want people to believe.
Gotcha. And it's unfortunate because it's taking advantage of a lot of people who trust these media outlets to provide them the right information. You know, because I mean, not everybody is in a position to do the level of researching and investigating it. You and I are afforded the ability to do. So they have to rely on people like you and I and the mainstream media to get their information. And when we don't provide that information as accurately as possible, we do them a disservice. And go ahead.
Well, no, I agree with you completely. When we have these situations, that's why the public has developed a low view towards journalists. I mean, we're generally viewed, you know, as pond scum, and we've earned it.
You guys are about almost lower than lawyers.
Yeah, which is
I get it pretty bad, and so
yeah, I mean, we know how disgusting lawyers are, especially those in Dallas.
Yeah, we're disgusting too. You need us. But no, man, it's the truth though, and it's I think it's so sad that we have such a low outlook on our journalists in this country, because whether we like it or not, we need them. We absolutely need them.
Absolutely, and we've earned every bit of scorn the public has for us. It's really sad. You know, we've beclowned ourselves time and time again. As a general group, we're incredibly partisan, but we don't wear our hearts on our sleeve. It's okay to be partisan. People know that you are, and that's the viewpoint you represent.
Yeah.
But when you're just trying to sit here, it's going, oh, I'm not biased. I'm completely honest, and this is the truth. But you're running a game.
Yeah.
People sense that out, and you have no more credibility, Brian Williams.
And you can't, and I dare say you can't get it back. In large part, I watch a lot of the mainstream media outlets. It's honestly, sheer entertainment. Everything I get from them, I find myself having to go back and reestablish and confirm whether or not they were true, which is a problem because I know a lot of people aren't doing that. And I think now with the internet too, there's so much room for people to come in and just kind of spew misinformation and color it as being credible. And then we have generally people on the internet are lazy consumers. We're really headline driven. So easily we can influence a ton of things with just misinformation. But I know that you and the guys over at Bearing Arms do a great job of making sure that they're on top of that. But you guys are also in a world surrounded by people who actually scream a lot louder, make a lot more noise, and wave their hands and do all the saber rattling in the world. Like, look at me, come get all of this misinformation that's gonna make you feel good or feel a certain type of way. And for me, it's always been one of my biggest motives is to get media outlets who actually take the time to do respectable journalism out in front to as many people as possible. Because when you have a population of people who are misinformed, we become an incredibly weak nation because we're only as strong as our citizenry. And if we don't have the information that we need to have to make requisite judgments on who we elect to represent us, who we have doing whatever it may be, we find ourselves in a very, very bad situation.
And it's, what's so sad about it is we actually live in a golden age in some ways for information. There are so many opportunities to find specialists and experts in certain fields.
Yeah.
And the problem we're running into now is filtering. We've got so much stuff coming through, and as you alluded to a minute ago, so much of it is just pure junk.
Garbage. Yeah, absolutely.
So what we need is to develop good outlets, curate those, and do what we can to popularize the folks who do things right. Yeah. In whatever field that is.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Bob. I'm glad to have you on here to talk about that. I mean, I respect everything you guys do at Bearing Arms. Continue doing what you're doing. Don't change for anybody.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks a lot, man. And we'll be back.